Okay guys, so in this video I'm gonna show you some basics about ransomware. So let's get into it. So I don't know why, I just felt like building something in Rust the other day and I thought to myself, okay, what can I build in Rust that should be fairly, like a good fit for some fun learning? And I thought, let's build a ransomware program. So what exactly is ransomware? So basically the basic idea of ransomware is that you have some files that you have, and like private files or some type of file, right? And I ask the attacker, what I want is for you to pay me to get those files. So basically what I have to do is that I have to encrypt your files so that you can't use them, and then I have to have some way of telling you that, hey, I hacked you, these are the files that you had. If you want them back, you send me some money in some secure fashion, and then I will give you a way of like decrypting your files and getting them back. That's the basic idea anyway. So there are a few ways that you can approach this. I just personally think that I'm not an expert or anything like that. There are many ways to do it, but the simplest way that I could think of, which seems to have been used in the past as well by more serious attacks, is to simply use a XOR or XOR operation, whatever you call it, and basically go through all the files that you want to encrypt and XOR all the bits inside of the file. So an XOR operation is very simple, like pretty much every language has support for it. All you're basically doing is that you take a line of bits like this, and you run it through the XOR operation. And basically what it's going to do is that it's going to take 2 bits in this case, and it's just going to have a look. If both of them are 1, the end output will be 0. But if one of them is 0 and the other one is 1, the output is going to be 1. If both of them are 0, the output is also going to be 0. So that's where the encryption kind of comes in, because in the cases where you have a 1 and not a 0, you don't really know if it's the original bit or the secret number, or like the other, like, well, the other number. You don't know which of the bits that has been used in the operation that is producing the 1, right? So like in theory, if you knew already what every bit in the original file was, then you could kind of derive the secret number from that and like get the key that way. But this is a very tricky thing to do. I mean, it's not that common that you have people remembering like or having like records of previous existing files and knowing exactly what the bits were previously. And even if you were to be able to do that, not every single file has a counterpart that you can compare to. So you're kind of, in some cases it might be possible to retrieve the files, but it would be very tricky for you to do so without knowing the secret, right? And this is kind of nice because, I mean, for me as the attacker, this is a very simple operation. It's actually very simple. All I have to do is run a operation. Like I need to read in a bunch of files as bytes, and just go over each, flip each bit, and that's pretty much it. So I did this. Let's just show the demo first and foremost. I have my secret amazing file here that I am so attached to and I absolutely love it. And then this very nice I'm just going to run this through, I think I have, yeah, let's just going to run it through cargo. So I'm just going to run my program and I'm going to say test directory like this, and this is just me kind of simulating, okay, I'm some unexpected user, some friend of mine or some way I got a file on my computer, right? And I open that and I run it, and all of a sudden, boom, there goes my file. I mean, the file is still here. We can still see the file, it's just that I can't see the image. And the reason why I can't see the image is because I have encrypted it, or basically I've created a secret key or a secret number, and then I've basically flipped all of the bits, or XOR'd every bit in this file. So it's no longer a valid file, or rather, the information is there, it's just in a different format, right? So as the hacker now, I print out some little message here. We would probably do this in a much more elaborate way if we were doing this in a real live environment. And then I say, okay, you have been hacked. Send the following code, 7243. This thing here, this is my little token that I just created. This is just my specific implementation because, I mean, I've never tried to exploit people before, so there's probably smarter ways to do this, but I thought that this was simple enough. I created a little number so I know that, okay, this is the person who got hacked, and then I know that this token that I give them is going to be mapped to the password that they're going to need in order to decrypt the files. So now we're just going to pretend that, oh yeah, this person here has sent, I'm the hacker. The person sends an email to hack@hack.com and they swear and call me all kinds of names, and then they say, but I still paid you. Here's the token, you scumbag you. And I kind of go, yeah, that's great. And then I go to my little interface here where I have a web server that I set up where I can just curl an endpoint with this token that they gave me, and out pops a secret number, or like a number that I have, and then I send, if I'm very nice, I'm a very nice hacker, I'm going to send this to the poor person that I exploited, and I say, all right, cool, just run that program again and do it with the K flag with this number, and you should see your image go back, or you should see your files like go back to normal. And that's exactly what happened. So now we can see my nice little cat here again, because basically all we did is that, as we could see here in my little description, that's the beautiful part about XORing. Like, if you run the operation twice with the same input, you're going to get the original output again. You're just flipping back all the bits, which is great. So let's just walk through the basics of, like, let's look at this. Like, this is a fairly naive implementation that I've made here, but it's mostly because, hey, I wanted to play around with Rust and I wanted to build some fun stuff with some, like, make a real use case. I mean, the real version of this program is going to be much more vicious and much more dangerous, and it's going to be available in the links in the description below. Anywho, let's have a look here. So first and foremost, I have this little library thing. Like, I've created a module that I call libraries. Let's just take a look at that. So here's my lib file, which a bunch of helper functions. So I have this little thing here, which I call get args. I'm using a small little library here. Originally, I had bigger hopes for this than, like, I made it kind of simple, but I just wanted to play around with some stuff basically. So I'm using clap, an external library that's called clap, which is basically just helping me set up the CLI. Like I'm gonna have to say, I was very impressed with this. It was a very nice library. And basically all this does is that it sets up the command structure so that I can, like, parse flags and, like, all of this stuff for my CLI. And then I get the key value, and then basically what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go and check for token.txt, which is this file that I just generated. And this is just me writing the token that was created to the file, so that if the person runs the program twice, it's not actually going to run it twice. It's just because I'm a very nice hacker and I just really want to make sure that if they have run it once and I have the token, I don't want them to by mistake double click several times and then create, like, maybe multiple keys and, like, encrypt it multiple times, because if they do that, that's going to be a hassle, because then it's not just one password I have to send them. I have to send them all the passwords, and they will have to run all those passwords, because that's the only way for them to get back the original state of their files. So after that, I have this little function that I call getStoredToken, which all it's going to do is that, hey, it's going to go to the file system and it's going to read the stored path, and then it's just going to parse all that into a string. That's pretty much all it's going to do. And then we have the path to the file, which is, well, it's just going to get the value of file, which is just going to be the default import. And we're going to get the metadata about that file, and then we're going to check if stored token if it's not empty and there is no key. Well, then basically we basically know that, all right, they have provided the key, and then we can just run our command. And the run command is very simple. What it's going to do is that it's going to take in the metadata about the file that we're pointing to, or whatever file that is, and then the path to the file and a key. And then we're going to check, is this a directory? Because if it is a directory, then basically what we want to do is to just create this lambda function that is going to run the operation on the path to this specific file with this given key. We're going to look at run operation in just a moment, which is just like actually doing the whole thing, right? And then we have this little function called walk directory, which is just recursively going to walk the directory, because I want to go, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it well. We're going to make sure that every single file we can get our hands on is encrypted, right? If we can, of course, assuming we have write access to them and stuff like that. And if it's not a directory, it's just a file that they pointed this to. It's just going to run it on that one file. So I can point this at the directory, and it's going to do it for all of the files inside of that directory, or just a single file, and it's still going to work. Right, and if the stored token is empty, then what we're going to do, in other words, like nobody's run this program before, it's the first run. We're simply going to use the rand crate, which is this little crate up here. and it's just going to help us generate a 64 just a long, basically. That's all it's going to help us with. And you could do this with other stuff as well. I just felt that a number is random enough, right? And then we're going to just use the same function here and just run the operation again. And then we have this little function called getToken, which is going to go to my little secret network, who's my little server here. And it's this little JavaScript file here. This is a dirt simple one. It's a little Express server where we can get a token, and all this is going to do is that it's going to generate 4 numbers, like a random number of some sort that's going to represent our token. It's going to save that in memory because, hey, we're not really don't have to have a database for this in a demo example, right? And then we're just going to return the token. So we have now on our remote server where we've stored the password that is going to get this thing done, right? Now, as an attacker, like if I was a real hacker and I was trying to do this, this would be probably one of the things that I would have to figure out a better way of doing. Because if, I mean, as you can imagine, if I'm doing this at large, if I'm doing this against 1 or 2 people, like with low technical skills, it's going to be fairly safe. But if I do this on large scale and some security person somewhere with a least as good an understanding of programming as me is going to see that, hey, shit, this guy is calling some external network thing. Maybe if I just go and contact, I just go and look up who is the owner of this domain, and like I start doing all kinds of nasty stuff that can trace people down, I'm going to be in a bit of a pickle. So this would be a problem if you were doing this for real, for sure. And then we're using request, which was a very simple and nice library I could use as well, which is also an external trait. And then we just that's how we do this. We just basically do a network call to this little server here, and we get the token. So here's the response. We parse out the token, and then we write the token to the token path, which is just going to produce this little file here. And then we print our message, which is basically this: send the following token to hack@hack.com, blah, 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 which is nice. And if all of this is false, then basically we are just trying to run the same program over and over, which is just going to print out the message. Because, as I said, I'm a nice hacker. I don't want to create a situation where I can't just give them a token, and it's a user experience. I mean, if you've been hacked, you want it to work on the first try without a bunch of others' passwords, right? So let's have a look at walk directory first, because that's pretty much, then we can look at the actual operation. It's a fairly simple operation. So we have a file to the path, or a file path, like a path to a file of some sort, and then we have a function, which is just a dynamic function, like it's basically just a closure that is going to return a result of some sort. And then, basically all we're going to do is that we are going to go and read the directory of the file path, or pretty much read all the files in the directory. And so for each entry, we're simply going to extract out the entry. We're going to get the path to that entry. We're going to get the metadata of that file itself, and then we're going to check, is this a file? And otherwise, if that's the case, we're just going to run the function that we were passed on that file, or the path to that file. And otherwise, we're going to check if, hey, is this a directory? And then we're going to just do a recursive call to this function again and go one level deeper. And then this is pretty much it. So if it's a file, we just run the operation. Otherwise, we walk the directory. And when we've done this for the entire directory, we're just going to return OK. That's the result of this operation, right? So finally, we have this simple little thing here, which is the actual thing that is doing all the magic with our files. So it's going to get the content of the file. This is also fairly naive because, I mean, if I am running this as a hacker on an unknown system, just reading a file into memory like this is not ideal, because if the file is really, really big, it might actually cause a problem. Like, I mean, let's say it's a movie collection, or like a zipped movie collection or something really big, right? Which then this might not work so well. So streaming the bytes would have probably been an easier way of doing this, but since I'm just playing around here, I don't feel that I need to actually go the full 9 yards on this one, or the whole 9 yards, whatever it's called. And then we're going to get the contents, and we're going to create an iterator, and we're going to enumerate that iterator because we want to have the index. We're going to map over all of the contents, which is basically just, well, It's pretty much just a vector of bits or a vector of bytes, and then we're just going to go through. And then we are basically just going to do, this is the XOR operation right here. And we're just going to grab each value. We're going to get the key, like the key that we have, like this is the secret key. We're going to get the characters of that key. And then we're going to get the key that then this is where it's kind of nice to use the modules operator, because basically we're going to have you can think of the file as a really, really, really long number of like a long number of bits, just a representation of all these bits, zeros and ones, right? And the key itself is also just a representation of all these bits, right? But the key is shorter than the file. So basically what we want is to just, like, we want to use for, like, all the bits up until the length of the key. We want to just flip the XOR on those bits. But when we need to continue and the key has ended, we just want to loop back to the start of the key and just start over. So we just, like, block by block, just pretty much loop over, like, roll over to the start of the key over and over and over. And that's exactly what we're doing here. So we're basically just grabbing the key that is in the nth position, or the bit that is in the nth position, and then we are basically, well, using modulus on the length of the key, so that if we ever get to the point where, hey, we would go past the key length, we just start at the 0th index again. And then we collect, which is going to return us this little vector here of, and we're just going to get the output. This is like the encrypted version of the file now, or the bytes that represent the encrypted file. And then we write to that file. We just overwrite the existing file. Done. That's pretty much it. This is that's how simple it is. I mean, you can do this in pretty much any language that has like a way to access the file system and can do an XOR operation. That's why I think it's kind of elegant. It's a very, by lack of a better term, a beginner friendly and very like a simple way to encrypt files. So yeah, this was my little example of how you can, hopefully this gave you some insight of the basics, how a ransom program can work. As I said, all you need is to have a program that can take in a file and run an XOR operation with some secret type of key or number or something like that. And when you've done that, you basically need to make sure that you as the hacker can get a hold, know what that secret password is, so that you can ask people to pay you money to get that password, so that they can run the program or another program that knows how to run this operation and reverse the damage that you just did to all of their files. And yeah, that's pretty much the basic of a ransomware program. Have a great day.